What trickery is this? Mal'Ganis! I don't know how you survived, but
Calm yourself, Prince Arthas. I am Tichondrius. Like Mal'Ganis, I am a Dreadlord. But I am not your enemy. In truth, I've come to congratulate you.
Congratulate me?
By killing your own father and delivering this land to the Scourge, you have passed your first test. The Lich King is pleased with your enthusiasm.
Yes. I've damned everyone and everything I've ever loved in his name. And I still feel no remorse, no shame, no pity.
The rune blade that you carry was forged by the Lich King and empowered to steal souls. Yours was the first one it claimed.
Then I'll make do without one. What is the Lich King's will?
The cult of the damned must be rallied once again. Many of the acolytes have been in hiding amongst the populace. Once you've rallied them, I will give you further instructions.
Speak, fool. Ah, at last. Finally. This is more like it.
Greetings, great lord. Our master, Kel'Thuzad, told us that you would come.
Kel'Thuzad? How could he have known it?
Be wary. If the townsfolk see your undead mate to serve, they'll call the local guards to stop you.
Frostmourne hungers. At last. This is more like it.
Help! The undead have returned.
Frostmourne hungers. At last. Finally. Frostmourne hungers. Faithless coward. This is more like it. Your pains no pleasure. Finally. I'll make sure you suffer. What needs revealing? Tread lightly. Frostmourne hungers. Finally. Frostmourne hungers.
Stand ready.
This is more like it. Frostmourne hungers. Ah, at last. Finally. This is more like it. Ah, at last. Finally.
The undead! Sound
my
the
last.
alarm!
Azul. Finally.
My sight is yours. All shall be revealed.
No one orders me around. At last. Finally. At last.
I shall be your eyes. I go unseen. I'll look into it.
Speak.
the undead! Sound the alarm!
I live
Finally.
only to serve.
At last, Frostmourne hungers. Finally. Frostmourne hungers. Finally. Frostmourne hungers. This is more
I bow to your will.
Finally.
Mercy, my lord!
Frostmourne hungers. At last. Frostmourne
The
hungers.
dead have risen again!
The damned
Guards!
Finally. At last. Finally. At last. Frostmourne.
bastard!
This is more like it. Frostmourne hungers. At last. This is more
The
like
dead
it.
have risen again! Guards!
At last. Finally. Frostmourne hungers. This is more like it. At last. Finally. This is more like it. At last. Finally. This is more like it. Frostmourne hungers. Finally. Frostmourne hungers. Finally. This is more like it. Frostmourne hungers. Finally. At last. Finally. At last. This is more
The
like
undead! Sound the alarm!
Frostmourne hungers.
Help!
This is more
The
like
undead have returned!
Finally. This is more like it. At last. This is more like it. At last. Finally. This is more like it. At last. This is more like it. At last. Finally. Frostmourne hungers. This is more like it. At last. Finally. Frostmourne hungers.
Say your prayers. Bandits, run!
This is more like it. Finally. This is more like it.
I'm in luck. These graves were dug recently. Arise in the name of the Lich King.
No one orders me around. At last.
Your pain shall be legendary.
This is more like it. At last. This is more like it. Now, Frostmourne. At last.
I bow to
Tread lightly. Frostmourne hungers.
Mercy, my lord!
I live only to serve.
At last. Frostmourne hungers.
Burn in hell.
At last.
Help! The undead have
Frostmourne
returned! Sound the
hungers.
alarm!
At last.
Mercy, my
Finally.
lord!
My life for Nezul.
Kill
Kill them all!
The dead have risen again. Guards!
My light for Nezul.
Frostborn hungers. At last. Finally.
Mercy, my lord.
This is more
The
like
undead!
You
Sound the
betrayed us all!
alarm.
last. This is more like it.
I'll make sure you suffer.
Finally. Frostborn hungers. Finally. At last.
The damned stand ready.
Finally. At last.
Help!
This
the
is more
undead have
like it.
returned.
Finally.
I bow my light
At
for
last.
Nezul.
Frostborn hungers. At last. Frostborn hungers. Finally. At last. Frostborn hungers. Finally. Frostborn hungers. At last. This is more like it. Frostborn hungers. At last. Frostborn hungers. Finally.
Our forces are under attack.
At last. Finally. This is more like it. Frostborn hungers. At last.
I bow to your will.
Finally. This is more like it. Frostborn hungers. At last. This is more
My light for Nezul.
at last. Frostborn hungers.
only to serve.
For the Lich King. Frostborn hungers. Finally. Frostborn hungers.
My light for Nezul.
Finally. At last.
Well done, Death Knight. The cult is nearly assembled.
Lordaeron lies in ashes. What good are these cultists to us now?
They will aid you in your next undertaking.
And what's that?
You will go to Underhall and recover the remains of the Acolyte's former master, the Necromancer, Kel'Thuzad.